Hi everyone. Let's talk about building that scatter plot in both Excel and also in Google Sheets. So here I'm in Excel again. If you remember last time, I took this function and I just highlighted it and I clicked on the insert chart and I picked the scatter plot, the one that's right here. You could go to recommended charts and let it, tell you a whole bunch of them, but I just went with the scatter plot, the XY scatter plot, and hit OK. And we had kind of seen that a couple times now, so we know about what that looks like. We also talked about how the correlation, we calculated it with that long formula. Remember, the correlation requires us to use a data analysis toolkit. So one of the data analysis things is correlation, and it allows me to do a correlation between many different variables at once. It always compares two at a time. So I'm just going to hit correlation and select the rows that I want to correlate are, and it has them selected. I want this information, the X and the Y. All right, and then I'll hit OK on that. And the output range, I am going to click right here and say that's where I want the output to be. And let's actually do this again and put labels in the first row. So let's do the whole row. I guess I could have done that in other ones, and then hit OK. And this way it shows me the correlation. And notice there's ones in here because the relationship from speed to speed, is always going to be 1. 10 to 10, 20 to 20, 30 to 30. It's always 1. It's like doing a y equals 1x. So you go over 10, up 10, or up 10 over 10, up 20 over 20. That's pretty standard. You're going to see that. The correlation, like we found before, between fuel and this is negative 0.17. That's so close to 0. Again, if you recall, is because this data really isn't positive or negative. It's so close to 0, so it doesn't really have that type of correlation at all. So that's working in Excel. Let me copy this data and show you in Google Sheets how to install the add-on that you're going to need. So let me jump. So there's the same data. There are lots of charts. I mean, you can still, when you're working with these charts, I can still do insert chart, and it'll recommend a bunch of different types, the chart types again. I want to find one that is, let's just do the line chart. I think that's about as close as we're going to get to the scatter. I think we could have it not connect in the customization of this chart. So if I went in to edit the chart, or right-clicked on it and said, there it is, change chart to scatter. It's the same idea, but you get the idea. What I want, though, is I want to be able to do that correlation. Now, in order to do that, we're going to actually add an add-on. You'll see I have some already, and I uninstalled this one. So we're going to go and put an add-on in here, just like we did with the other data analysis toolkit. So I'm just going to go into add-ons, and I'm going to search for add-on called data analysis. And you'll see Excel Miner analysis toolkit. It's free. I'm just going to install it. I'm going to have to give it some permission to go and work like this. So yeah, I'll allow. And it will automatically put that in here. And normally when I go in here, I can click on the Excel Miner tool pack and start it. And it puts a little bar over here on the right hand side, and it gives me a lot of the same types of charts that I have. So here is correlation. And I want to do the input range. This is backwards from Excel, by the way. I need to highlight the input range and then click on this. Labels in the first row. And then I'm going to say, oh, give me the output right here. So highlight, then click over there and hit OK. And it gives you the exact same thing that you have in Excel. So again, it's the Excel Miner toolkit. So that's going to allow me to do quite a few different things when we're working with all of the graph, and especially to make that correlation calculation pretty quickly. So let's take a look at another example of that. So I came back to Microsoft Excel, and I'm really taking a look at number 28, 428, and I have here is the percent of retired or percent return and new adults, and this is talking about the sparrowhawk colonies, something about the number of birds that are in here. It says one of the patterns is that the adult birds in a colony that returned from the previous year and the number of new adults that joined the colony. And here's the data for 13 colonies of sparrowhawks. So the number of returning adults and the number of new adults. And we want to know, what's going on here. So let's initially just insert a chart. And here's my scatter chart. And take a look at this data and make some predictions. Now, right away I'm looking at this and I'm seeing what appears to be a negative correlation, that the fewer returning adults there are, the more new birds there are. And as I increase the number of returning adults, I actually have a decrease in the number of new adults. All right, so that's that. It looks negative to me because it looks like it's going down to the right. Let's see what it says if we actually do the data analysis of that correlation. So correlation, okay, I have everything highlighted right away, labels in the first row, output range. Let's make that right here, boom, and hit OK. And it says it has a negative correlation. Correlation is always going to be between -1 and +1, and this is really close to -1 here. So as we're taking a look at that, that's a really strong negative correlation. Again, we can do that same thing in Google Sheets. So I'm going to jump over to that Google Sheet, and I'll just make a new sheet here, paste that data. Remember, same ways, highlight the data, insert chart, and I'm just going to pick one. Oh, look, now it gives me recommended chart type scatter plot. So there we go, perfect. So there's my data chart just like I did before. And for correlation, really this is already set up, but I'm going to highlight the area, click on it, pick an area, click on it at H6 this time, and then hit OK, and it's going to give me that same calculation doing the correlation for me. So remember, and these are outlined on let's see what page in your textbook it kind of goes through this. Page 107, it talks about the relationships when we're talking about this correlation. And I'm jumping over here so that I can write them down. But here's my pen. The first thing it says is correlation doesn't care which is the independent and dependent variable. It doesn't care which one is the explanatory and response variable. It doesn't care. It also says that because R uses the standardized values of observations, it doesn't change when we change the units of measure. So it doesn't care about the units of measure. Just works with the data. All right. The other thing it says is that positive R really means that there is positive association, and we'll talk about the association in just a second. Negative R equals negative association. All right, we've been talking about that a little bit. I've been talking about the correlation, but here we're talking about positive and negative association. And the correlation of R is always between -1 and +1. So you're not going to see ones with like 23x like I showed you with the slope before, where it's really steep. It's always going to be between -1 and +1. And then remember, 0 means there's really no correlation at all. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the association. And you can look in your text also on kind of a page before that, on page 104. So remember when we were talking about this picture and we were saying with the speed and gas mileage that there was no correlation. We did that now a couple of times. We measured it out to be about negative 0.17. It was so close to zero. There's no correlation here. There is a strong association though. The speed really does seem to determine something about the gas mileage. I think gas mileage does have a relationship to speed. It's not a positive relationship, it's not a negative relationship, but there is a relationship. So I guess what I'm pointing out is to be careful in your use and when you're looking for something to say, is there an association and is there a correlation? All right, when we talk about correlation, we're usually talking about positive and negative. You know, does it tend to go up? Does it tend to go down? When we're talking about association does it seem to have an effect? So you can have or an affect on it. Does it seem to have an effect? Does something seem to have an effect on something, or is it affected by it? Not vocabulary. So you can have a strong association without having any correlation, like we showed in the one where it followed a very clearly defined, strong pattern where it seemed that it was following some kind of pattern. You know, it wasn't just scattered all over the place. So keep that in mind, that you can have association without having correlation.